out that the sun shines down its power to all the world and makes the wind blow strong as it will. I wonder hope gentle rains can fall upon the land, so lovely earth can stay lovely still. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Energy Week with George Harvey and Tom Fennell. My partner, Tom Fennell. I am George Harvey. I'm about to change my name, by the way.
Oh, are you?
Yes, I'm going to change it to Pernicious Frump.
Sounds good. In case you guys don't recognize us, we've both had haircuts.
Yeah, you know, we got through the summer, and the summer heat is ending. So, given our completely illogical approach to life, this is what you get for spending your life as an engineer. Is you forget to get a haircut before the hot weather and start dealing with it later. Okay, we get news all the time, every day, at my blog, geoharvey.wordpress.com, and gather it together. We get the best of the blog and present it once a week. Today is the 10th of September, and we start with a week ago today at the 3rd and bring you up to the 9th. So we're going to start with the 3rd of September, and we might as well just get into it.
Well, let me just mention one thing.
Okay.
I mean, this week was particularly this way. A lot of the blog items that George selects are very long and detailed with a lot of stuff in there.
Golly,
and we could talk the whole show
about one of them.
On one of these.
Yes,
you know?
I know.
So if you guys see something that's interesting, or if we mention it to you, look it up.
Look it up. And in fact,
where do you look it up?
Well, you can look at geoharvey.wordpress.com. I give the date that the thing comes from, usually.
Because some of these are well worth pursuing.
Some of them really are, and there's been a lot of news in the last week. And some of it's, well, anyway, we'll get into it. Thursday, September 3rd, from the Rakyat Post, and I think that must be coming from Reykjavik. Iceland is luring business with renewable energy, emerging from financial isolation. Iceland is making a name for itself in the business of data centers, warehouses, consuming enormous amounts of energy to store the information of 3.2 billion internet users. And that is all renewable energy.
Well, they're in a unique situation.
Yeah.
Because of their geothermal, particularly, and some hydro.
Yeah.
They're generating far more electricity than they can use.
Yeah, they were even talking about running a submarine cable to Scotland.
They'll probably do that eventually.
Yeah.
But here's one way they can eat up energy, because these data centers use enormous amounts of energy just to store data.
Yeah, and
these things, you're not talking gigabytes, you're not talking terabytes. I don't know what goes higher than terabytes.
Well, they've got words, but nobody knows what they mean.
But here's a quick takeaway. It produces 5 times more electricity than its 320,000 strong population needs.
What is that picture?
And all of it is renewable.
What is that picture? Should it be adjusted?
Well,
there you go.
This came with the article.
Okay.
So it's a stylized picture of a data storage center.
Oh, goody. It looks like an explosion.
Well, off on the side, there's a lot of ones and zeros, and this is just an artist's conception.
An artist's conception.
It is appropriate because it came with this article.
Aha. Okay. Well, what it boils down to is the amount of cabling you need to get data from here to Iceland is not very big, even though you're moving lots of data. But storing
it's coming. I think it's coming. I mean, they have so much of a surplus.
But you can send the data through satellites.
It's the storage of the data.
It's the storage. They are storing the data, and that requires
enormous amounts of energy.
Every single datum requires very, very little energy. You know, this little computer I've got in front of me uses 5 watts of power.
Yeah, if you talked about that.
5 watts.
That blows the mind.
It's mind-blowing. It's got
my electric toothbrush uses more than that.
This thing has 2 gigabytes of random access memory and 32 gigabytes of digital hard drive. It's the non-mechanical hard drive, and it's got a fast processor, and it uses 5 watts, and it also has a screen, and that 5 watts includes the screen.
Well, before we hit the next one, let's just mention one quick takeaway.
Yeah.
BMW has signed up with Iceland to do their data storage.
There you go.
And BMW is saying it costs 83% less for operating their data center in Iceland than it did in Germany.
Oh my gosh. 83% reduction in costs. Yeah,
that's definitely a no-brainer.
And in Iceland, they've got multiple sources of energy, but a lot of it is geothermal.
Geothermal and hydro.
Hydro.
It's all renewable.
And they're the first place in the world to drill a hole with a pipe into the magma in an active volcano. Mm-hmm. So they're taking the power directly from Mother Earth. Lava. Yeah.
Yep. Beautiful.
Okay. Our next piece is from Economic Times. Solar power generation contributed to about 10% of peak summer supplies in Japan's 9 major utilities, equivalent to more than 10 nuclear reactors.
This is peak, and we'll talk more about peak later.
Solar power supplies only 2% of annual needs, but it came at peak demand time. And
that's the takeaway right there.
Yeah, this is typical of solar power around the world. Yeah, if it costs more, I got news for you. It's worth more because it comes at exactly the time when power prices are highest, when
Bingo.
the sun's shining. Okay, we're up to Friday, September 5th.
Oh, this is an interesting one.
I'm glad you like
this
it.
one, yeah.
Okay, this is from engineering.com. Solar window technologies say they have a working electricity generating window with a payback of under 1 year. If you can imagine anything having a payback under 1 year. It's a transparent window coating. It installed in a 50-story building, and it would generate up to 50 times as much power as conventional rooftop solar. And
there's a picture of it. You can see right through it.
Right. If that is true, then it's potentially very important. And you'll notice that I repeated the word if. We come across an enormous number of technological breakthroughs, and not all of them are.
Not all of them make it, but most of them will. Well, some of them certainly will.
Some of them certainly do. And this business of the solar window, There's a lot of windows. There's a lot of windows. There sure are. And that could actually change a lot. It could change where we get our electricity to a very large degree. Our next item. Are we ready for the next item?
Yeah, we're ready.
From
Good old Hinkley Point.
Hinkley Point, yeah. Western Daily Press. French energy giant EDF admitted that construction at the UK's first nuclear power plant in decades has been delayed. Hinkley Point C in Somerset will not start generating power in 2023 as planned. Yesterday, that being the day before this was issued on the 4th of September, it claimed no delays were going to happen. This company went from one extreme to the next in 24 hours. And honestly, I did not catch why they're saying it's going to be delayed. Did you read that, Tom?
I probably did, but I didn't make a note of it, and I don't have any more.
This was
a kind of a short article.
If I had to guess, it would be one of two, or possibly both of two.
Got something to do with money.
It has to do with money. The Chinese economy is in recession, and this depended on money from China.
That's a very good guess.
Yeah. The other one is they've been having problems with the integrity of the reactors themselves. Apparently there are structural flaws.
This was never been tried on this scale before.
Yeah. And the reactors, when they tested the reactors, they found flaws in them.
Yeah.
And the French regulators said, we're not going to let these things go into use unless we can get this corrected.
The flaws were with the hardware. They weren't wrong with the process, theoretically.
There was
something wrong with the way it was being delivered.
There was casting flaws in the reactors themselves, and that's a serious problem.
That's not a good idea.
No, not a good idea. Okay.
Well, I'll bet you $1 right now, right here in front of all these people, that this never happens.
I'm not going to take that bet. Tom and I will each take bets of $1 with anybody who wants to put up money on the other side. No, we don't want to do that. I don't bet money, but I think that I will bet that this Hinkley C will not be built.
Well, it's just not economical. You look at the numbers. I mean,
The
they're
numbers,
not
they're
there.
unbelievable. 2 reactors are going to cost $40 billion, and they have to guarantee that these things are going to get a price that's
Above
3
market.
times
Yeah.
the market price until 2061.
It just doesn't make sense.
It does not make sense.
When you scratch that deep enough, something's corrupt in that chain of command.
I have no doubt whatever. You know, British government, you listening here? We're saying that you're corrupt.
As is the Australian, the American, the Canadian, all the English-speaking governments are corrupt right now.
All the non-English.
Well, a lot of the other ones too.
I don't know. There's probably governments in this world that are not at all corrupt, but there are funny things
Bhutan,
going on.
I think.
Huh?
Bhutan.
No, you know what they had? They had the National Happiness Index.
Yeah, they won.
They did. The problem is that the way they achieved happiness was by getting rid of all the Hindus.
Oh, was that so?
That's what I've read.
Huh?
The people who
I'm not going to comment on that.
this is, and
I get in
it's
trouble
not
to
that I
comment
think
on
there's
that.
anything wrong with Hindus. It's that I think there's something wrong with saying I would just be happy if you would move out of town.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, let's move along to California.
I've known a couple of Hindus who are very nice people.
Oh yeah, I've known a lot of them.
Have you? Well, good for you.
Yeah, I worked in Saudi Arabia with Hindus.
I used to be a Hindu.
Were
But
you?
that was a different lifetime.
Touche.
I had just forgotten that until right now. Okay. We're up to Saturday, September 6th, CNN. Plant for the Planet, a global youth initiative that plants trees to reduce the effects of climate change, asked for a worldwide tree
I
count.
think I'm on a different one here.
You're on a different one. California State
passing a
Assembly.
bill. Yeah.
We do that every week just to make sure people are paying attention. The California State Assembly passed a bill which will force the state's 2 largest pension funds to divest their holdings in thermal coal. And the bill requires the funds to divest holdings in companies that receive at least half their annual revenue from coal mining. Actually, this doesn't mean as much as it sounds like, because the revenues from coal mining are going down very fast.
It's a good economic decision.
Yeah, it's a solid economic decision. But a company that gets 50% of its revenues from coal mining this year and would have to divest of it might only get 30% next year.
But they're still going to get some.
Well,
Interesting picture there on the right where it says divest. That's an aerial view of a whole bunch of people standing in a field.
yeah.
So all those little dots are people.
Yeah. Well, we've seen this over and over again where California got burned badly by having money in its pension funds in fossil fuels. Was it $5 billion they lost last year?
I don't have that number. That number was in this article.
Well,
it certainly was.
I was reading also about one of the big coal companies, and over a period of just a few years, the value of their stock went from $140 a share to 4 cents.
Yeah,
That's
that was at an outfit in Utah, wasn't it, or
Might have been.
Wyoming, or somewhere
might
out
have been.
there.
So that was from Clean Technica. Now we're up to Saturday, September 6th, from CNN. Plant for the Planet, a global youth
here we
initiative
go, yeah.
that plants trees to reduce the effects of climate change, asked for a worldwide tree count. And scientists at Yale did a study. The good news? There are 3.04 trillion trees on Earth, 7.5 times as many as previously estimated. The bad news? Number of trees is down 46%. That's from the beginning of human beings messing with forests.
Well, just in the last 100 years, we've lost a lot of trees.
We've lost a lot of trees.
The rainforest in Brazil is rapidly disappearing.
Yeah, this is something that actually goes back into ancient times. From Clean Technica, compared to typical wholesale electric prices of $25 to $60 per megawatt hour, I'm going to repeat that, 25 to 60 in the New York ISO's
I'll
Western
convert
region.
that to American, 2.5 to 6 cents per kilowatt hour.
Right. The New York ISO's Western Region wholesale prices hit $1,100 to $1,200 per megawatt hour. Convert that to American dollars?
$1.10 to $1.20.
Yeah. This is wholesale prices.
This is what they're paying for peak power.
That's right. Similar events across the nation. Demand flexibility would help reduce these spikes, ultimately reducing the rates for consumers. This is from Clean Technica. That graph is not a single graph going over time.
No, it's three separate countries, three separate time.
Right.
Three separate heat waves, basically.
And the one on the right, which is almost half of the whole thing, is the New York ISO. And those power spikes, you can see, at 1,200.
They're very high.
Very high. Yeah. $1.20 a watt as opposed to 2.5 to 6 cents. And when the power companies hit those times, they have to pay $1.20 a watt hour for power that they're selling you for 10 cents or 15 cents or whatever.
And they can't get it back from
And they cannot get it back. And that all gets rolled into, this has been happening forever, and it all gets rolled into the prices that they have to pay, and they go to the Public Service Board or whatever it is that's going to be in the state that they're in and say, well, this is what our costs are, and this is what we can charge our customers, we think. And the Public Service Board say, yeah, you're right, or no, you aren't. You're not. But what happens here is that, and this is a really important point, as solar PVs get put up on rooftops, in fields, in wherever they're put up, that power comes on at exactly the time of day when the peak is. So they may be paying 23 cents per kilowatt hour for solar that they're going to be selling at 15. But if they weren't paying 23 cents, they might be paying $1.20 instead.
Yeah, that is exactly the message here.
Yeah. And so
let me pull this back up here. So I got a couple of takeaways.
Okay.
They're calling this, what are they calling it? It's not distributed. I missed the word. Demand reduction.
Demand reduction.
Okay, that's what they're calling it here.
And the intelligent grid would also do a great deal for that.
I'll give you a quick sentence here. Of course, the associated electricity demand came largely from one thing: air conditioning. Okay,
right.
People were using it a lot. Duh. For utilities, wholesale price spikes like these were taking a sucker punch in the gut.
Right.
Okay, they're paying through the nose during peak on the wholesale market, yet charging customers like you and me a much lower fixed retail price, which they have to. They're contractually obliged to do that.
Yes.
Meanwhile, surge pricing like this is a key revenue source for certain generators that might run only a few dozen hours a year.
Right.
And here what they're simply saying is that we got a new ball game, guys. Solar power is coming on at the right time in the right place, and that's going to help everybody.
These generators, the generators that only run a few hours a year, are running on natural gas for the most part.
For the most part, yeah.
And they are very different from the combined cycle generators that provide baseload power.
They're basically jet engines.
They're basically jet engines, and they sit there, and if there's any expectation that they may have come into use, they're turned on. They consume power. Yeah. They run.
Yeah.
They're what's called the spinning reserve, and as soon as the price of power gets to a certain level, they start putting power on the grid so that they can sell power at a very high price.
Interesting to find out who owns these things, you know.
Some of you could own one yourself if you've got a place to put one.
You got a couple
and
$1 billion.
And you happen to be in a state that with a utility that wants that. That could be done, but I don't know whether you could do it in Vermont, but I believe you probably could. The problem is it's going to be you need a natural gas connection.
Yeah.
Or possibly you could run it on propane. It's not something I'd want to do.
A lot of guys to shovel coal.
Yeah, right. It's not something I'd want to do because it's a kind of investment that I think could go sour very quickly. Very easily.
Well, under the circumstances, you're absolutely right. 10 years ago, it was a different ballgame.
Yeah. Okay.
Let's move a little closer to home here.
Okay.
This is a nice one.
Vermont's Green Line is the latest proposal to run an electric transmission line under Lake Champlain. The 400 megawatt underwater and underground cable would run 60 miles from Beekman Town, New York to New Haven, Vermont. the power from wind farms in northern New York would be put onto the New England power grid at that point. Now that's from WAMC, which is
That's Albany.
okay.
Albany Medical Center. I'm going to scroll down on this because we've got a map and it's too big for the screen. But it starts at the top just above Plattsburgh.
Yep.
And comes down here to New Haven,
Right.
near Middlebury.
Right.
And there's a takeaway here. What's really driving this is that the New England states have put out an RFP, request for proposal,
Right.
for new renewable energy to be brought into the region.
Right.
Well, that's good. That makes sense.
Yep.
And they're trying to figure out where. Well, I missed the point on this thing. It's somewhere else in this article. Oh, here it is. Well, lines not within a lake will be underground.
Well, I think one of the
There's a lot of wind power coming from western New York State.
Right.
And they don't know what to do with it.
Yeah.
And this is the market for it, and this is how
This is a good market. Now, I want to point out that we have options in power here in Vermont and in New England. And those options mean that we're going to have to do one of two things. We're either going to have transmission, such as natural gas lines or electric lines, or we're going to have to generate the power locally. And
well, that's the way I think it's happening.
And generating the power locally means that we're going to have to make some choices about big solar farms and big wind farms and things of that nature, or possibly things that I'm not particularly in favor of covering huge fields with solar power or putting lots of wind turbines on ridges, but we've got to make these choices, or we've got to decide that we're not going to use power. And I'm not sure how we do that. Do we go to our neighbors and say, stop driving your car? Turn your thermostat down to 55.
Well, I can drive my car, but you can't drive your car.
Yeah, absolutely. I've got wheels, and my wheels work whenever there's no snow on the ground, no ice on the ground. Problem is that it make me pant because it's bicycle. But the point is, this thing would be bringing power into the state by having a relatively shallow trench, narrow trench.
No, I don't think they're even going to trench this one.
They're not going to
just going to lay it on the bottom of the lake.
So it lies on the bottom of the lake, and hopefully doesn't cause any mischief down there. And it would be buried in areas on land, which means that it's a safer system too.
And in the long run, cheaper.
Yeah.
But that's the long run.
Yeah, long run. It's more expensive than just putting in power cables, but I don't feel like looking at power cables either. But
you mean power lines?
Power lines.
Yeah. There's the next one up here, a little closer to home, and it's about exactly that.
The one in the state park?
Emerald State Park, yep.
Okay, I'll go to it. This is from vtdigger.org.
There's a nice picture of the beach at Emerald Lake.
One of the really great publications of Vermont. One Vermont state park is getting ready to go off the grid. Vermont's Green Mountain Power is partnering with the Vermont Department of Forests, Parks and Recreation to transform the bulk of Emerald Lake State Park in East Dorset into an e-park powered entirely by solar and the new Tesla Powerwall battery for storage.
Well, reading into this one, this is a win-win-win. Not just win-win, this is win-win-win. Because getting electricity to this park has been a problem for them. They got to go through a swamp. The trees are falling down in the wintertime and breaking the power lines, and they have an awful lot of money involved every year in maintaining the lines. So
Green Mountain Power might actually be benefiting from this by getting rid of a problem.
That's what I mean by win-win-win. Everybody's winning on this.
Okay, now that explains why Green Mountain Power would do it.
A standard power line extending a half mile through swamps, marshes, and rough, heavily forested terrain to the park. The line experiences multiple outages each year where line workers have to make costly repairs due to fallen trees and the remote locations of those trees.
By golly. Okay.
So somebody had their thinking cap on.
I suppose. Now we get to Green Left Weekly. Visiting Australia, Canadian author Naomi Klein says she believes she owes Prime Minister Tony Abbott, quote, a debt of thanks, end quote. In Sydney to promote her new book, Capitalism versus the Climate, This Changes Everything, Klein said the conflict between what the planet needs and what capitalism needs is exemplified in Australia. And I have to tell you, I don't think capitalism needs it. I think capitalism desires it.
Yeah.
I think capitalism would be a
won't argue
lot
with that.
better off if it was, and I'm not the only person arguing this. Capitalism would be a lot better off if it would embrace protecting the environment, and you know, Ceres has been convincing people of that for years. People in boardrooms.
I got a quick paragraph by Naomi here where she's hitting it right on the head, I think. She talked about the Australian government. Mm-hmm. That's what this article is about. Mm-hmm. This is a government that shows more than any other what that conflict looks like. That's the conflict between what the planet needs and what capitalism needs.
Yep.
Okay? And what the costs actually are. Every time Abbott tells you to choose between the economy and climate action, he's proving the thesis. The ideology of market fundamentalism simply cannot accommodate what humans need to do in the face of the climate crisis.
Yes.
Capitalism is waging war on the regulation of corporations, on the idea of collective action, and is constantly trying to liberate corporations from taxation and regulations. This is not compatible with what we need to do in the face of a civilization crisis like climate change.
And the point that I would make on this is, it's not capitalism. It is
it's the form of capitalism.
Yeah, it's a small part of the capitalist organizations that are around, and it's the fossil fuel industry, which has got $100 trillion. You remember that figure? I think it was from last week. The
I remember.
Stranded assets.
Yeah,
Citigroup
stranded
said
assets.
$100 trillion
Wow.
in stranded assets.
Blows
People
the
are going to
money.
fight for $100 trillion. That's enough to start a few world wars. But the banking industry and the insurance industry and you start going down the list. These industries are going to lose money if the fossil fuel industry doesn't get its act together. So there we go.
Well, a quick takeaway from her is we can have a much stronger, fairer, and more stable economic system and still act on climate change.
Yeah, that's right. And it could be a combination of capitalism and Bernie Sanders. You never can tell how that would shake out. Okay. We are up to Sunday, as I see it, September 6th. I'm in the wrong month. A study from researchers at Melbourne Energy Institute and RMIT in Australia has highlighted how demand has been reduced in the last 5 years. But there's also now 1.44 million households with a total of 4.4 gigawatts of rooftop solar.
And that's mostly been done just by individual Australians acting on their own.
Right. The result is that there are no more super peaks in the electricity demand. This is from Clean Technica. And that means that those peaks that we were talking about just a couple of minutes ago have been eradicated.
To a great degree in Australia.
So the result of that, of course, is that by adding solar onto the grid, you have a potential for reducing the prices for electricity for everybody, and giving benefit to the utilities.
What this article is mentioning is several years ago, let's say maybe 5, the Australian government estimated how much electricity the Australians are going to need.
Yeah.
And they went out and built transmission lines to accommodate this.
Isn't that smart?
And the reality is that they're using much, much, much less.
Yes.
If you look at the graph on the right, that diagonal line in the upper right corner is what the government said they were going to need. And if you look at the boomerang on the left, that's what they actually used. Okay, and it's coming down.
Yeah.
And that little boomerang on the lower right is what the government is now predicting it's going to need in the next few years, which is a little bit more accurate.
A little bit more accurate, but you know, I keep getting reminded of the Energy Information Administration in the United States, which makes its projections of what the demand and supply is going to be like 25 years hence or a year hence, and they're always way off the mark.
Well, it seems like Australia's joined the club.
I guess. But you know, again, this also shows something else. We've got the utilities and the fossil fuel industry finding themselves having competition that they did not anticipate, and they're losing customers at the same time, and it's very, very costly. And they're
Well, yeah, that's one of the things that's driving the Australian people to put up rooftop solar.
yeah. The price of electricity goes up, so people put solar panels on their roof. So the utilities say, well, we've lost a customer. We're going to have to bring the price of electricity up.
Yeah, that seems to be what's happening.
And it doesn't work. So,
the article here says Australia's electricity costs are among the highest in the world.
yeah, and a large part of that is because of transmission.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And
part of that's geographical. You
Yes.
can't get around it. It's
Yes.
a lot of people, a few people, and a lot of land.
Yes, and there was an article, I think I'm going to have it next week, but they're talking about a transmission line in Washington State, Oregon. Mm-hmm. It's 28 miles long, mm-hmm. and it costs $200 million.
Wow.
That's a lot of money.
I would think.
Well, that thing that we've mentioned.
What are they doing? Cutting down cities or something?
No. This is running through land that looks like not abandoned. It looks like nobody's ever lived there. In the West, no trees, no nothing. It's in a basically desert area in eastern Oregon, Washington State, and it's just expensive. It's a lot of transmission. These are big lines.
The big lines. Okay.
Yeah, but we've seen that before in eastern Long Island, where the utility was planning on putting up power lines for $500 million.
Yeah.
And decided not to because solar was being put in.
Everybody's putting in solar out there.
Okay. Our next one comes from Asheville Citizen Times. North Carolina health officials in 1999 alone issued 111 orange or red warnings of bad air days on which sensitive groups or everyone was warned against exercising outside.
This is a nice picture taken from the Skyline Drive in eastern North Carolina.
Now,
Western North Carolina.
Yep.
Sorry.
Last year, they made no warnings last year, as clean air standards likely helped cut death rates for asthma, pneumonia, and emphysema in the state. And that, I think, is a very important issue.
It's something we overlook completely.
Well, we don't.
We don't, but I mean, yeah, we as a
society.
It's costing us.
Yeah, most people don't
we're
think
paying
about
for it.
But the World Health Organization says that 20,000 people, roughly, are dying from air pollution every day, worldwide. 20,000 people. And most of those people, or I shouldn't say most, a small majority of those people are being killed by pollution, evidently from fossil fuels. And a lot of the remainder are being killed because they're dying because they're cooking or heating using unvented fires indoors.
That's another problem.
It's a problem, but it's a problem that can be addressed, and is being addressed. I should add. The fossil fuel industry is killing something over 10,000 people every day. And 10,000 people a day was about the average, or a little bit more than the average, of the number of soldiers being killed during the Second World War every day.
I never thought of putting it in that context, but
I did that on the last issue of Green Energy Times. I talked about the Silent World War.
You don't think about stuff like that.
You don't think about it.
Well, all of these costs are buried. Nobody knows them.
Yeah.
Nobody's aware of them. And
but
you're paying them.
Yeah, you're paying them. The thesis that I had in that article, The Silent World War, which is a front page article in Green Energy Times, was that the fossil fuel industry is fighting as hard as it can. Koch Industries is financing organizations that have said they are going to put nearly $1 billion into the next presidential and congressional campaign in the United States. Their figure was $889 million, but that was just from one organization, and they have subsidiary organizations that are like cells all over the United States, at least one in every state, and they are fighting as hard as they can to maintain a right to market their products in whatever way they wish, which as far as I'm concerned is just fighting to maintain a right to kill people.
Certainly one way of looking at it. I
And-
can't argue that you're wrong.
And unfortunately, we've got a political party in the United States that is just kowtowing to them. So
Well, they're getting paid
I'm not
off.
going to say that it's the Republican Party, but it is. Oh, wait a minute. I just made a mistake.
Money
Right.
talks, man. Money talks.
Money
And
talks.
it's talking.
That's right.
And it's
you've
not
got
just in this country.
A bunch of people with great integrity who are very interested in the future of the United States, who are selling the country out as far as I'm concerned. Am I in the middle of a rant here?
I think so.
Should I stop?
Let's move on to the next rant.
Okay. We are
Back to Australia.
Back to Australia. We are up to Monday, September 7th. In Australia, new TV advertisements that explain the, quote, endless possibilities, end quote, of coal, providing light and jobs has been labeled ludicrous and desperate by environmental groups. The groups also criticize a claim that new coal technology will reduce emissions by up to 40%. This is from International Business Times AU. What is that picture?
That is a coal heap in Australia.
That is a coal heap.
They're pouring coal into a pile.
Yeah.
You know, it's from
And it's all
Newcastle.
coals
Newcastle,
to
Australia.
Newcastle. Yeah, this is Newcastle, Australia, not Newcastle, UK, but they're
There's
both
coal in
known
both
for-
places.
There's coal in both places.
I
Newcastle,
wonder if that's a coincidence.
I don't know. Newcastle, Australia is the biggest coal port in the world, and the city has voted to divest itself of fossil
We
fuel.
talked about that last week.
That's
Yeah,
funny.
exactly that.
Yeah.
But this
Okay.
one here is about the Australian coal industry, or really fossil fuel industry, trying to put lipstick on a pig. And they've got a series of TV commercials
Yeah.
that are just sort of touching the edge of reality.
Touching the edge of reality. Well,
And the environmentalists are looking at this and they're laughing, you know, and that's what this
the
article's all
unfortunate
about.
thing is that people actually buy this stuff. Oh
Yeah.
well.
Yeah, they
Should
do.
we continue to our next thing, or do you have more to say on this?
No, we've hit this one, but
Okay.
the next one's interesting.
The
Well,
next
did
one
it
is
again,
interesting.
Jesus.
This is from Clean Technica. New York Governor Andrew Cuomo announced that construction will start in the area's first ever large-scale anaerobic food waste digester system located in the Long Island hamlet of Yaphank. It sounds like it belongs in Korea. Nevertheless, Yaphank is a hamlet, they say, in Long Island with a population of 6,000.
Well, it's right smack dab in the middle of Long Island.
It is a hamlet that is 8 times as big as the city of Greensburg, Kansas. It is expected to handle 160,000 tons of waste every year, including solid food waste, fats, oils, grease, and grass clippings.
Well, you got to look at this as a pilot plant.
As a pilot
No,
plant.
really. I mean, it really is.
It is. And
They're
this is-
talking 180,000 tons of waste coming from New York City.
Yeah.
That's a drop in the bucket. There's
Yeah,
a huge amount of waste coming from New York City.
I know. And it's not just New York City, it's everywhere.
Well, in this particular case, New York City's 80 miles away.
Yeah.
Okay, and it's an enormous market for this kind of technology.
Yes.
And reading into the article, they're using every part of the pig but the squeal.
Yes.
I mean, they're
And you don't
using
even,
anaerobic digestion, which means they got microbes that don't require air,
that's right.
and they're producing methane.
Yes.
And once you got methane, as we've already talked about, using existing chemical technology, you can make almost anything plastic or liquid fuel out of it.
That's right.
You can make gasoline, you can make kerosene, you can make jet fuel.
But you don't have to make anything because methane can just go into the natural gas.
And
lines.
some of of that is going here.
Yeah.
And they're running their trucks. They're selling the excess methane. This is a win-win-win situation.
So the trucks that they're driving into New York City and bringing this stuff back to Yaphank
run on natural gas.
run on natural gas, which is not really the natural gas from the wells. It is
It's
really
the natural gas that they're producing.
the stuff they're producing.
Yep,
so
this
these
is a winner.
trucks
This is
are
really a winner.
literally running on food waste.
Yep.
Okay, we are up to
And
Tuesday.
if this makes the kind of money that they're thinking it's going to make, you're going to see these things popping up everywhere.
Well, the USDA said that we should have 11,000 anaerobic digesters in the United States to deal
That's
with
just for the farms,
farm
isn't it?
waste.
Yeah.
That's just farm waste. You can deal with municipal waste this way. You can deal with food waste this way. And by the time you're done, you're talking about I mean, it's not going to be 90% of the power that we need, but it's going to be a fair hunk. And this power, by the way, is round the clock.
Yeah, it
This
is.
is
It's
round
not
the
peak
clock.
power.
This
It's
is
round
a
the clock. Yep.
this is a form of renewable power that is pretty predictable as a round the clock, what they call baseload power source. So
And they can store it by pumping it into the gas
they
grid.
can store it. They can store it, or they can convert it into other things,
Yeah,
as you pointed
yeah.
out, chemically. Okay.
Well, moving a little closer to home.
A little
Just
closer,
a little bit.
Just a little bit. Tuesday, September 8th. 5 solar projects along the Massachusetts Turnpike and Route 3 are not the largest in the state, but they are among the most visible and striking examples of a solar industry that has grown more rapidly than most policymakers and energy specialists ever imagined. They will produce a combined 2,500 kilowatts, enough for 500 homes. And there you see that picture.
That's the Mass Pike. That's around Framingham. It's there already.
It's there already.
Yeah, that's not an artist's conception.
Yep,
it's real.
There it is. And it's just sitting on land that otherwise would be
Something they have to mow.
Huh?
Something they have to mow.
Something they have to mow. Well, they're
They
still
still
going to
have
have to maintain
yeah.
it. But they're going to be maintaining something that's producing power for people and money for the government.
And that's basically the message of this.
That's the message. And you could do this along a huge number of roads in the United States, just huge number.
Well, the article goes on to say that this is part of a long-term state project to put these things up all over the state.
Yeah.
Over 10 years.
Yeah, and I will point out, it's not just interstate highways or like Route 3 is a
major
limited
It's a
access.
major
Yeah,
road,
I used to live in Plymouth and Kingston, Massachusetts, and you know, I used Route 3 all the time, and there are other places. I mean, these things could be used as canopies over sidewalks.
That's coming.
They can be
That's
used
coming.
as canopies over
parking lots. That's coming. Just makes sense.
Yep. And I think we're going to see a very large part of our power, and I'm talking about maybe as much, well, you know, I don't feel like I'm going out on a limb by saying we could easily see 50% of our power from solar by the middle of the century.
I wouldn't bet against that.
Yeah.
No, I think it's inevitable. And it's going to be done by economics, purely and simply.
That decision, I think, is going to be largely economical. But I think we're going to have as broad a spectrum of fuel sources, power sources as we can get. Should we move on?
Let's move on a little further away this time.
C News Renewables, which I get a lot of stuff from, which, by the way, is in Bulgaria.
Is it really?
It is. You know, I got my first visit to the energy blog, I think it was, today, from Bosnia-Herzegovina.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
You get stuff from all over the world.
All over
don't
the
you?
world. Bosnia-Herzegovina was the largest city in Europe, largest country in Europe, from which I had no visits. And the largest country in Europe that my blog has not had visits from, now that has been taken care of, is Montenegro.
That's not very large.
It's not very big. Okay, let's go. Brazil has the highest share of renewables in its power mix, reaching 73% in 2014, with the BRICS bloc, which also includes Russia, India, China, and South Africa, which is why it's called BRICS, B-R-I-C-S. The renewables percentage in the other countries in the group range from just 2% in the case of South Africa to 22% in China. And the figures include exports. And Brazil...
The opposite side of this is fossil fuels are taking a secondary role in Brazil.
Oh, yeah.
They're just 22% of Brazil's power right now.
Right.
So Brazil's moving very quickly to renewables.
Very quickly. When the president of Brazil reached an agreement with the president of the United States that they would continue to move toward renewables, it was a no-brainer for her because they'd already been doing it. Okay, are we to move ahead?
Along. We talked about baseload power before. Here's a little bit more about it.
A little bit more about it. This is from The Ecologist. Nuclear power advocates cling like limpets to the to the idea of baseload power. No surprise there, it's the only selling point they've got. It's just too bad the idea is obsolete. Variable renewables combined with stronger grids, energy storage, and responsive demand can do a better job for a good deal less money.
Well, here they say it really quickly. The money will be made in add-on services, not basic electricity.
Wow.
So they're not going to be generating the power, they're going to be buying it, but they're going to be selling you the process of delivering that power.
Right.
Okay, so they're going to be running, what do they call them, the sticks and the strings.
Sticks and strings.
Yep.
I'm told that that's what Mary Powell says.
That's what Mary Powell said. Yep. That's what she calls it.
Mary Powell has an undershirt.
Huh?
She has an undershirt. It's blue and it has a big red S on her chest. Mary Powell, for those who don't know, is the CEO of Vermont's own Green Mountain Power.
Yeah, she's pretty sharp.
She's
sharp
a very
lady.
very sharp woman, and she is in the business. You know, that when they decided that they were going to help put a park on a 100% renewable basis, and Green Mountain Power is helping do this.
But they're benefiting by it.
They're benefiting.
That's what I meant by win-win-win. You know?
Yeah, this is a woman who is looking at the big picture.
Yeah.
Not just for everybody, but also for her business. I think this is very impressive.
Oh my God, we're going to give up selling power to these guys. But
Yeah.
oh my God, we're going to save $7,000 every spring because we don't have to put our crews in there.
There you go. That's what it is. Okay, we are now up to September 9th, Wednesday.
We're getting
just
there.
yesterday.
We're getting there.
Dutch solar is booming right now. Parties involved have reported sales increases of up to 100% in the first half of 2015 compared to 2014. This is primarily due to the fact that in the Netherlands, a generous net metering system and the public has faith in, the Netherlands has a generous net metering system and the public has faith that these policies will not be adjusted to their disadvantage anytime soon. This is from Clean Technica. I think that picture is really kind of pleasant. It's so clearly a set of houses in the Netherlands on a canal, and everybody's got solar panels on the roof.
Absolutely.
Pretty.
Absolutely. It's kind of neat. Yeah, it looks like they're new houses that were built in an old style.
Yes, I think that's what it does look like to me. But
I'm thinking of the Hanseatic League. You know,
oh my golly! Do you know the Hanseatic League still exists?
Yeah, yeah.
Man.
But the original homes that were built during the time of the league look just like that. But
Yeah.
these don't look like old buildings.
They don't look like old buildings. They look like they're too straight and regular. But of course, you never can tell what the Dutch are going to do. They can take an old building that was originally straight and regular and make it look straight and regular.
Yeah. Here's a good one here. This guy doesn't want to give anything up.
Okay. This is from Vox. First Energy, with 6 million customers in Ohio and nearby states, owns a handful of big nuclear and coal power plants that are no longer competitive in the power markets. Rather than shut them down, the plant is asking Ohio regulators to force their customers to buy the plant's power over the next 15 years at 2.6 cents per kilowatt hour above market
whatever it is
prices.
at that time.
So they're going to spend a little bit of just a few $100s a year in order to make sure that those big power plants that are no longer efficient, that are basically dinosaurs.
Yep.
We're going to spend money to keep the dinosaurs alive. By golly, well, they're an endangered species. Maybe,
Well, this article here was a very, very long article. It was about
I
5
know.
or 6 pages.
Oh, boy.
And it's basically talking about this utility. And if there's a right way and a wrong way for the utility to do something, they've done it the wrong way every time.
Yeah.
They're not only trying to pull this scam, the article reads about 5 or 6 different scams they're pulling. And it ends up by saying they're also hostile to energy efficiency.
Yeah, well, what can you say?
Last year, the company canceled all of its residential and industrial efficiency programs. And here they say Well, they calculated for every dollar spent on energy efficiency, customers save more than $2 in power costs. And they say this is bad. Canceling the programs would save the consumers money. And they explain that. Why? Because consumers would no longer have to pay the extra fees that First Energy charged to make up for the revenue it was losing in efficiency.
Okay.
They must have an awful lot of political power in that state. That's all I can tell you.
This is really good. If you give me extra money, I won't have to resort to extortion.
Yeah.
There you go. By golly, I should have thought of that.
Yeah.
Oh, can we escape this? It does make me think, though, that there's a new way of looking at that old saying. There are three ways of doing things: the right way, the Army way, and the First Energy way.
That seems to be the case.
Okay. Our final article for the day is from Business Green. Did you get this one?
I got this one, yeah.
Okay, because when I went to look at it again, I couldn't get into it the second time.
I think I probably had to go around this one.
Yeah, you probably had to. I'm
Matter
sorry.
of fact, I'm sure.
I should go back to the blog.
I'm sure I did, but
yeah.
But it was easy going around it this time.
Okay.
Sometimes it's hard.
Rural poor aren't going to wait for centralized clean coal, in quotes. Global coal is on the ropes. Prices for thermal coal have collapsed as demand evaporates. Stocks have crashed. Companies are going to the wall. The World Coal Association is clinging to parts of the world with limited access to energy as a possible lifeline, and it ain't gonna be thrown.
Well, this picture we got up there's a story in it, just in and of itself. It's a
Let's put
artist's
the picture on the screen.
conception. Oh, it's not even on the screen.
Well, it's kind of in the background. There you go.
It's an artist's conception of what a clean coal plant would look like if they built it.
And it's got a blue sky above it.
And this one, well, there's no smokestacks.
Yes.
It was all carbon capture and storage. They were going to pump it underground and leave it there.
Yeah, right.
There's salt mines down there or something like that.
That's right. That's what we're going to do.
And it's been canceled. It was going to happen in Illinois. It isn't going to happen anymore.
Yep.
Well, they may come up with phase 2 or something like that. But right
two.
now,
Why bother
this
with
is
a
over.
pilot plant when you can go straight into business?
When what?
Why bother with a pilot plant when you can go straight into business?
Oh, okay. Let's see what else I got in there. Yeah. Well, this is a takeaway.
Yep.
There are already thriving, this is about bringing coal to rural areas, particularly the articles about the rural areas of the world which are not served by power lines right now, like the central part of Africa, some of the countries in Asia, large parts of India. And they're making a case that there's no energy there now.
Yeah.
And what these guys are saying, there are already thriving entrepreneurs in rural areas of the developing world with mobile phones, solar panels, and solar lanterns who have energy, light, and communication. They do not register as having energy access according to the statistics, nor are they waiting around for the coal industry to ship coal around Africa and construct power lines across the entire continent.
Yes.
They're doing it already.
They're doing it. And this reminds me so much of that thing that we had, it was a couple of months ago, about Maasai women who were putting solar panels on the backs of donkeys.
That was very interesting,
And they were taking these solar panels and the various hardware that they needed to connecting them up from village to village, hawking their goods and putting, installing solar panels on the roofs, or
making a little bit of money,
making a little bit of money, an honest day's pay for an honest day's work. And they were bringing people electric power who had never had it before at a price that everybody could afford. And so what do we need to do? It must be illegal. What do we need to do? We need to put in big baseload coal plants so that we can string the electric lines to these people who are out in the middle of no place. We just talked about an electric line transmission system that was 28 miles long, cost $200 million.
Yeah.
And a big coal burning plant costs hundreds of millions of dollars. And we're going to spend hundreds of millions of dollars delivering power to a village where the people live in grass shacks. It does not make sense.
Well, the takeaway from this article is this is the bad news that the coal industry doesn't want to hear.
Yeah.
Addressing energy access is not likely to result in significant demand for coal.
No.
Aside from deluding themselves with the mirage of a large new market, this is not going to provide solutions to those that need them. And the solutions are happening now as we speak.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
It's grassroots. It's ground up.
Ground up.
Yeah.
The coal industry is being
being
ground up. I know that. I just thought,
wrong
you've
choice
got
of
something
words.
that's growing from the ground up,
wrong
and what
choice
it's
of
doing to the
words.
coal industry is grinding it up. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I believe we are at the end of our hour.
Yeah, we've.
We will say goodbye.
I'm trying to think of how Click and Clack closed their show about wasting another hour of your time or something like that. I hope we didn't do it.
Yeah, have a good week. Bye-bye.
It makes the wind blow strong as it will. I wonder hope gentle rains can fall upon the land, so lovely earth can stay lovely still.